Hello, grade 5. This is a little strange, isn't it? I'm teaching you, but you're not at school. Yeah, well, you're going to have to get used to it for the next couple weeks. I will be teaching you guys social for the next 2 weeks. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be focusing on our booklets that you should all have at home. And we're going to be doing some reading and some highlighting. It's not going to be too tough on you, but you will have some assignments in the booklet to do, and we will collect them at the end of the 2 weeks, hopefully when we're back, to all of your specific teachers. So Miss Rachel, Miss Mavish, and I. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through the fur trade. And this is day 1. So we're going to go through 2 pages, highlight notes, and then what I'm going to want you to do afterwards is I want you to then tell your parents everything that you learned so far about the fur trade. So let's get going. All right, so the fur trade played a major role in the opening up and developing of the Canadian frontier. Men and women from both England and France were attracted by the profits to be made from the fur trade. The beaver pelts were especially prized for use in the manufacturing of felt hats. So beaver pelt, that would be the beaver fur. Beaver hats in Europe served as a status symbol for position and wealth. And then we have a bunch of examples here of the different hats that were made from the beaver furs. So what I want you to highlight in those in that first little bit is I'm just going to underline it because the highlighter doesn't go over the words. So you're going to highlight the first, actually the last couple sentences in that first paragraph. You're just going to highlight all of those. Okay, so all of these different hats had different meanings for the position of the person in England or France. Whether they were in the army, the navy, their wealth, things like that. So we're going to scroll down. Oh, a little too fast. All right, and we're going to continue. Although the French and the French Canadians dominated the fur trade in the onset, the majority of the beaver hats were made in England. By the late 1600s, the French were importing beaver hats from England. In the early days of the fur trade, Europeans would trade their goods with First Nation middlemen who would collect furs from the tribes in the interior. So this is important. Europeans would trade their goods with First Nations middlemen who would collect the furs from the tribes in the interior. Okay. That means the Europeans would trade all of the devices, the trinkets, the things that they had, the blankets, with the First Nations middlemen who would then give them the furs, and they would go and make the hats in Europe. Over a period of time, this trading became very prosperous for business. Many of these traders worked for the Hudson's Bay Company. In 1670, the Hudson Bay Company was formed by the British to organize, manage, and generate profit from this booming fur trade. The King of England had granted the Hudson Bay Company a large territory of land and the exclusive trading rights in the watershed of the Hudson Bay. This land became known as Rupert's Land. So, all around the Hudson Bay, which is, I'll just show you on the map here. The Hudson Bay is this area, and in the watershed of that, they were given the trading rights, the exclusive trading rights, in order to trade with First Nations people and get all the beaver furs. So this is a very important part. We're going to highlight from here all the way to the end of the paragraph. Okay, so don't mind my underlining. It might cross out some of the words, but you're just going to highlight all the way to there. And we don't have this map included in the booklet, so don't worry about that. In 1754, the Hudson's Bay Company, the HBC, sent Anthony Henday to Rupert's Land to encourage the natives to trap for them in exchange for manufactured goods such as copper pots, rifles, axes, and blankets. This essential was the beginning of the many HBC trading posts set up all over Rupert's Land. A trading post is where all the trading would happen in one centralized location. These trading posts were run by a single person who was usually of Scottish descent. So, again, you're going to do kind of lots of highlighting. I'm just going to do this. So you're going to highlight that as well. Okay. So I'll give you, you can pause the video at any time just to get your highlights done. Don't worry about following along with me throughout the whole thing. I might go a little bit quicker, so you can pause the video. Don't worry about that. All right, and we're gonna move on from here to the next page. The French fur trapper traders would bring their furs to the trading posts to sell, rather than go all the way back to Eastern Canada with their cargo as they had done in the past. Much trading continued to be carried out on a personal one-to-one basis between the French trapper trader. So, you're going to highlight that first line, and you're going to highlight the last sentence. Okay, and this is an image showing the First Nations people, or they're referred to as the natives in here, bringing their furs to the Europeans, the French trapper traders, and they're receiving rifles and other things that they didn't have from them in exchange for their furs. And we're going to continue. And the last part, this is all we're doing today. However, the First Nations, over a period of time, slowly began to seek out trading posts and deal directly with them. So the First Nations people decided, we don't really want to be middlemen anymore. We want to deal directly with the trading posts and take our furs to the trading posts. And that's what this image is showing. So you're going to underline that. Sentence. Although the small trading posts were doing well, the Hudson Bay Company decided that it would be even better if they built larger trading posts, and these larger trading posts were called forts. So, now we're talking about forts. Okay, a fort is much larger than a trading post. A post would probably just be a little building on the edge of the river or wherever they were set up. The fort was actually we'll get into this with a little more detail on tomorrow's video, but it will have walls and it'll have little buildings inside of it, and it'll be kind of more like a community, and that's what we'll learn about tomorrow. We'll learn a little bit about it right now, but tomorrow we'll get a little bit more into detail. Each fort was run by a chief factor who was usually of Scottish descent and was often part owner of the company. A number of locations throughout Rupert's Land were built. For example, Fort Langley and Fort St. James in British Columbia, Fort Edmonton, which is where I'm from, Edmonton, and Fort Chipewyan in Alberta, Prince of Wales Fort and York Factory in Manitoba, and Fort Pelly in Saskatchewan. These forts collected, handled, graded, sorted, preserved, and packaged the furs before they were shipped back to Lower Canada and from there on to the European markets. So, The forts did a little bit more than what the posts did. But we're going to underline this to start, or we're going to highlight this. So each fort was run by a chief factor who was part owner of the company. And then we're going to underline or highlight this last sentence. And this is really important to know because basically everything that was done with the furs were done in Canada before going to Europe and then made into hats. So everything was kind of done on site at the fort, and then it was shipped off and then shipped to Europe to be made into a hat or whatever else they used it for. So that's all for today. Now what I want you to do is I want you to go and I want you to tell a family member, tell a friend, what you learned today about fur trading and the fur trade in the forts. Okay, so have a great day, and you'll have another video to watch tomorrow, and we'll go through some more stuff. Thanks.